I'm Charles Kuralt, and this is Sunday Morning. David Duke, who was a Nazi and a leader of the Ku Klux Klan, is not going to be governor of Louisiana. He was defeated at the polls yesterday by former Governor Edwin Edwards. But more than 670,000 Louisianans voted for Duke. What could they have had in their minds? The politics of frustration is our cover story this morning, to be reported by David Culhane.
The voting here in Louisiana is over, but now a major reassessment is underway about the issue of race in American politics. Political observers say that David Duke has energized an anti-black constituency that is demonstrating strength not just in this state, but all around the country. This Sunday morning, we will take a close look at the Louisiana campaign, talk to people who have analyzed it, and try to estimate the implications for national politics.
Terrence Smith has a story for us this morning about a young man in a wheelchair. He plays tennis in that wheelchair, and he is determined to be the best. A long and winding road is Eugenia Zuckerman's story about what one of the Beatles is up to these days.
For the past several months, the Boys Choir of Harlem and the Collegiate Chorale have been preparing for a major event. Tomorrow night, they'll be participating in the American premiere of Paul McCartney's latest work. McCartney, who can neither read nor write a note of music, has nonetheless created a unique classical composition of major proportion. Later on Sunday morning, we'll talk with the composer and hear some of his Liverpool oratorio.
From Carnegie Hall to Baffin Island, very near the top of the world. Bob McEwen will take us to meet an artist who has found kindred spirits where some people might be surprised to find life at all. John Leonard has found life on television. He'll be along in a little bit to tell us about that surprise. Eric Engberg will join us to Sunday morning quarterback the election in Louisiana. The weather, the sports news, and a milepost will follow these headlines for Sunday morning, the 17th of November. Edwin Edwards' margin over David Duke in Louisiana was a wide one, 61% to Duke's 39%. CBS News exit polls show that Duke received a majority of white votes. But black voters, a third of the electorate, and Republicans who feared the economic consequences of a Duke victory gave Edwards his win. In Beijing, Secretary of State Baker said he made a little progress in talks with Chinese leaders, but he said that between the United States and China, there is too wide a gulf on human rights and other issues to be bridged in one visit. A report issued today by a human rights organization called Middle East Watch accuses this country and its allies in the Persian Gulf War of causing needless civilian deaths. The report says that indiscriminate bombing by the allies killed as many as 3,000 civilians. Iraq is also criticized for its missile attacks on Saudi Arabia and Israel. Vukovar, the Yugoslav city, which has been a center and a symbol of Croatian resistance, is lost. The Croatians said today they can no longer resist the Serbian-led federal army in Vukovar after 86 days of fighting and many casualties.
Fashion and affordability at Foreman & Clark, you bet. This extended shoulder double-breasted suit is only $225. This athletic cut suit sells for only $150. Here's a wool blend blazer for $95 and an all-wool double-breasted at only $125. This microfiber outer coat with wool zip-in liner sells for only $225, while this Thinsulate zip-line trench coat is only $115. Fashion is affordable at Foreman & Clark. Why pay more and get less?
The gift of a diamond from Morrissey Fine Jewelry is a tasteful and stylish reward for any occasion or accomplishment. To be certain of its excellence, the Morrisseys again traveled to the prestigious diamond cutting capital of the world, Antwerp, Belgium. They hand-selected only the highest quality diamonds to meet your personal and professional tastes. You can buy with confidence at Morrissey's and enjoy the satisfaction of possessing the best diamond value in the world. Morrissey Fine Jewelry, 5th Street, West Des Moines.
Bachner Gallery is having a holiday art sale just in time for the gift-giving season at very special prices. As always, Bachner Gallery has created the largest display of fine art in the Midwest. You'll find beautifully framed prints at special holiday prices. Select from traditional, contemporary, and wildlife prints from today's premier artists. This holiday season, give a gift that lasts a lifetime at the best sale prices of the year. Bachner Gallery, 10201 University, West Des Moines.
I really like to get involved with video. That's why I like Best Buy. Through Thursday, they've got 0% financing for a year on all TVs, VCRs, camcorders, including Panasonic. So I can get a big new TV and really get caught up in the game. Or I can relive my favorite adventure movie with a Panasonic VCR. And I can make my own epics with a Panasonic camcorder. Take my word for it, 0% financing at Best Buy helps video dreams come to life.
Let's say you're a nice kid from Niceville, Florida, a sophomore walk-on kicker on the football team. And on a bright Saturday afternoon, you go out there and kick 3 field goals in the biggest game of the year. Now you have the chance to win your team the national championship, if only you can kick one more. That was the story of Jerry Thomas yesterday as his team, Florida State, #1 in the nation, met Miami, #2. Miami played well and scored first. A touchdown set up by Steve McGuire's 32-yard run in the first quarter.
15 first down for Miami.
And then the touchdown scored on a McGuire plunge into the line. Florida State came back with the help of Jerry Thomas's field goals and led 16-10, but on a 4th and 6, Miami kept the drive alive with a clutch pass reception by Forrest Copeland. And when Larry Jones took it in, #2 Miami led #1 Florida State 17-16. 25 seconds left. The sophomore from Niceville came onto the field. His game to win or lose. He told himself, just keep your head down, follow through, and make it.
It's up. Missed it to the right.
By the length of a football, Florida State's Orange Bowl dreams went a-glimmering, and Jerry Thomas's sophomore heart was broken. Washington and Michigan both won. They will meet in the Rose Bowl. Florida won its first official Southeast Conference crown in 58 years and will go to the Sugar Bowl. California will play in the Citrus Bowl after beating Arizona State. Penn State beat Notre Dame 35-13. Well, we have a good old-fashioned mid-November temperature map to show you this morning. These are the expected highs for the day. Nippy in the northeast and in the western mountains and plains. The southeast, which was pretty cool most of last week, will warm up today. If you are watching us from around Seattle this morning, congratulations. That means you have electricity. A lot of your neighbors don't. The wind was clocked at 90 to 100 miles an hour near Aberdeen on the Washington coast in the middle of the night and blew down many power lines. There will be more wind and rain today as far south as Northern California. And the middle of the country, as you can see, will be wet and windy too, with more snow for eastern Colorado and neighboring parts of Kansas and Nebraska. Heavy rain today from Minnesota to Louisiana. And more rain tomorrow as the storm in the center of the country moves slowly eastward into the Ohio Valley. More snow in the central Rockies tomorrow. Denver's already had about 20 inches of snow this fall. And just what nobody wants in the northwest, another big rain and windstorm is approaching the coast and should hit Seattle by late afternoon tomorrow. Last week in Phnom Penh, an old man was given the key to the house in which he used to live a long time ago. And what kind of milepost is that? Well, the key was to the royal palace. And the old man, who is free again to let himself in and out, is Prince Norodom Sihanouk, come home to tortured Cambodia after 20 years in exile. I knew Cambodia once and thought it the sweetest country on earth, filled with the most peaceful people. Soon afterward, peace and even sanity vanished. For more than 20 years, war raged or sputtered in Cambodia, and something worse than war. In the 1970s, when they ruled the country, the Khmer Rouge, the communist rebels, murdered outright or permitted to starve to death 1 million Cambodians. After the killing fields, horrifying almost beyond imagination, came invasion by the Vietnamese army and a puppet government and more factional fighting. Norodom Sihanouk reckoned that the only hope for peace was to bring the factions together in one coalition government, all the factions, including the genocidal Khmer Rouge. So they are back in Cambodia too, along with the old man who holds the key to the royal palace again and to the future of his country. Even by the standards of history, which is full of desperate bargains, this one is a milepost. But maybe it will hold. I remember quiet Cambodian nights and soft sunrises. If ever a country deserved a sunrise, this is the one.
This portion of Sunday Morning is sponsored by GE. We bring good things to life.
He was 50 when it happened. In 3 months, he went from perfect vision to almost total blindness.
You know, you never appreciate the beauty in your life until you can't see it anymore. My wife, my family, my life. Everything I cared about just turned to darkness. And no one could tell me why.
In test after test, doctors were at a loss.
I can't find a thing.
There seemed to be no answers. Finally, a test was done using GE's revolutionary magnetic resonance imager. It lets doctors see things that ordinary tests and x-rays can't. Look at this. Incredible. The doctors discovered a tumor affecting his optic nerves, and he was treated. Within days, he got his vision back.
Hey, how about a smile?
And everything that came with it.
Your biggest competitor is working on a proposal for the same job you're after.
You want this to be enlarged?
They have about the same idea as you do.
Copy this slide.
The only difference is
let's print it.
They own a Canon color laser copier, and you don't. Who would you give the job to? If you think you can't afford a Canon color laser copier, maybe you can't afford to be without one. Call 1-800-OK-CANON.
So many families now love Quaker Oat squares. Think how a flake feels.
You okay?
Oh, I'm so flat and frail, not square like you.
Quaker Oat squares are more than just square. We're toasted whole grain oats sprinkled with brown sugar.
You're sprinkled. I'm wrinkled.
And Quaker Oat squares stay crunchy in milk. Come on in.
Can't. Once milk touches me, I'm a soggy sight.
I'll try not to splash.
Quaker Oat squares. You'll love them.
From Square One.
The politics of frustration is our cover story, by which we mean the politics that in economic hard times with an alienated white middle class might have elected David Duke governor of Louisiana yesterday. He lost the election, but he won a mighty following. David Culhane reports that David Duke is with us and is not going away.
The election campaign that ended yesterday established David Duke as a national leader, if not the leader of the racial far right in American politics.
This is Duke country, ladies and gentlemen.
Attractive, engaging, a modern television candidate.
It is time to require the able-bodied welfare recipient to do work for the welfare checks in Louisiana.
brilliantly exploited issues involving taxes and middle-class frustrations concerning affirmative action and welfare programs.
We have got to begin to reverse the cycle of poverty, irresponsibility, drug abuse, illegitimacy that's going on in the state of Louisiana.
This isn't a Louisiana message. This is a message that's sweeping America.
Campaign consultant Ray Struther helped lead the fight against Duke.
We're a country that's getting more intolerant. We're a country that's getting more polarized economically and socially. And don't be surprised if a David Duke could be elected in a lot of states, Michigan, Ohio, a lot of places you'd be very surprised.
David Duke has struck a chord in Louisiana and indeed in American politics that's bringing him powerful support. That chord is race. Critics charge that there is a subtle racial anti-black cast to everything David Duke says, and that his past demonstrates the real truth about him.
Grand Wizard of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, Mr. David Duke!
This is a 1979 Klan rally.
This is one of the first places where massive integration began in America, and I believe Little Rock, Arkansas will be one of the first places where massive integration will end in America.
That past reveals a white supremacist.
My victory.
Who is he really? And where is he headed? Many critics are sounding the alarm. Louisiana State Senator Cleo Fields.
The danger of a Duke being elected to office, not only in Louisiana, but in any state in the nation, the danger, I think it carries with it, with the election, is just racial tension, and you can't have racial tension without having racial explosion.
Duke tapped into the economic worries and the anti-establishment, anti-government currents running this year. And he's tried to repudiate his past. But virtually everything he says has a twist, an unspoken meaning his audiences understand because they recognize his code words.
It's about time as well when we put people behind bars for murder. It's about time that we know that a life sentence is a life sentence in Louisiana and not a sentence for all.
He can be a complete racist simply by the way he talks about crime, because those watching know that he's not talking about crime. They know he's talking about black crime. Those watching know he's not talking about welfare. They know he's talking about black welfare. But more than that, the middle class says, I'm paying the price for crime, I'm paying the price for welfare, I'm paying the price for affirmative action, I'm paying the price for quotas and set-asides, and I'm tired of it.
Welfare is taking money from the taxpayers' pockets.
Louisiana voters, racked by 10 years of economic downturn, were angry and ready to hear the David Duke message.
People are taking advantage of it now, and we just kind of let them run over us. You know, if a black man, and I have nothing against blacks, I have very good friends that are black. If you're a black man and you're with the NAACP, you're for the cause. But if you're a white man and you're for equality, you're a racist.
David Duke is certainly not the first candidate in American politics to attempt to capitalize on the issue of race. He is just the latest variation in a long political tradition.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
In the 1960s, George Wallace used race to help forge a new coalition, Southern rural whites and the urban middle class. Washington Post political writer Thomas Edsel says David Duke has activated that same alliance.
That key constituency has become the fulcrum in American politics all through the 70s and 80s. That's how the Republican Party has been able to go from being a minority party in presidential elections to a fairly consistent majority party.
You needed that job, and you were the best qualified, but they had to give it to a minority because
political consultants have learned to use race, like this in the successful 1990 re-election campaign of Republican Senator Jesse Helms.
Bush and Dukakis on crime.
The 1988 presidential campaign offered the classic in racial innuendo with the Willie Horton ad, produced by supporters of George Bush.
Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man, and...
He is the stereotype of the worst and most feared characteristics of the black community, by appearance and by his deeds. This guy was a bad guy.
We want our own individual rights.
Political observers think that whether it was intended or not, the Willie Horton ad opened the door to more blatant use of racial issues and prepared the way for David Duke. Louisiana State University political scientist Wayne Parent.
Willie Horton ad that we only saw a few times but was all over television anyway, was a very clear message to Southern whites, and that this sort of subtle racism was okay.
The sad thing about it is that David Duke is the only one that seems to be listening to the things that are going on wrong in the state, or our anger.
Rice farmers in Louisiana have just finished the harvest. Many of them are Duke supporters, people like Nick Hundley. He does not consider himself a racist, but he's troubled by the effects of affirmative action.
I met a state trooper at the Holiday Inn in Lafayette, and he told me that he had to hire 8 new officers, and everyone had to be black. No, it didn't make any difference about qualifications. They had to be black.
It is Nick Hundley's anger, his distrust of the institutions of government, that is the fertile ground for the Duke campaign.
I think most of Duke's supporters are not self-consciously racist and bigots.
Lance Hill is the executive director of the Louisiana Coalition Against Racism and Nazism.
He's the kinder and gentler bigot. He's found a way of tapping people's racial anger and resentment without wedding himself to the language of racism.
When someone has a long record, an ugly record of racism and of bigotry, that record simply cannot be erased by the glib rhetoric of a political campaign. So I believe that David Duke is an insincere charlatan.
President Bush did repudiate David Duke and said that if he lived in Louisiana, he would vote for the Democratic candidate. But political writer Thomas Edsall thinks President Bush still has a problem.
I think Bush is caught on a double squeeze. One is he does not want to be seen as racist, but there is, on issues, a real overlap between the stands between Duke and the Republican Party platform. I mean, they both are anti-reverse discrimination, basically anti-quotas.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to change those policies. It's time for a new day in Louisiana politics.
The issues of David Duke are growing in strength in American politics. Race combined with welfare, crime, and taxes. And for politicians, they may simply be too attractive to resist.
With David Duke doing as well as he did, the incentive for those issues to come into every race, including the presidency, increases.
Campaign consultant Ray Struther.
I'm terribly concerned about the Duke phenomenon because I think it's telling us something about the system as a whole that worries me. That we're becoming a polarized society. That it's us against them, it's blacks against white, it's the rich against the poor.
This campaign is over, but critics fear that this whole brand of politics is on the rise, that it will not help solve the underlying issues, but simply tear the races apart and put the social and political fabric of the country at risk.
Ironically, as camcorders get smaller and lighter, they've become harder to hold steady. And when your hand shakes, so does the picture. That's why this Panasonic Palmcorder camcorder has digital image stabilization. It can hold the picture steady even when your hand shakes this much. And unlike the other compact camcorder format, the Panasonic Palm Quarter is VHS. So its tapes can play in your VHS recorder and the millions of others out there. The VHS Palm Quarter from Panasonic.
This is when I love Grape Nut cereal. I've been out here all morning, and I'm still going. Does your cereal do this? Try breakfast with Grape Nuts for a week. I did, and I feel great. Grape Nuts is this natural energy source, and it's fat-free. It tastes so good, too. It's hearty. It's got what you need to help keep you going. If you want to feel this good every morning, try Grape Nuts for a week yourself.
Breakfast with Post Grape Nuts helps keep you going strong all morning long.
Our competition uses a very sophisticated, state-of-the-art, highly precise device to measure their cars. Our car, the Accord from Honda.
Greg Gumbel, Terry Bradshaw.
Watch this, folks. What do you think the team needs, Terry?
I think they stank. The NFL today.
Dallas already beat the Giants once this year. I wonder if they can do it again, or if the Giants can rally.
You know, I'm really scared of heights. Keep talking football.
Oh, okay. Dallas is on their way.
Tuesday, an air show stunt goes horribly wrong. Witness the actual footage of a daring last-minute rescue.
It was like doing a stunt that nobody's done before.
On Rescue 911.
This is CBS.
Have you ever watched an automobile? Have you ever watched an automobile